today, we've got our green light for our run southbound. So hang on tight, the conductor is giving the all aboard signal.
All right, so walk along here. So this is a towering pine. This is a sleeper car. Mr. Pullman loved calling his cars by southern trees. So if you were at an intersection and saw a car with the name of a southern tree, you knew that folks were in the sleeper car.
Okay.
So this one dates back to around late 40s, early 50s. Now the presidential car is considered a heavyweight because it has a set of 3 wheels. This and all the other cars are considered a lightweight because it has a set of 2 wheels.
Okay.
Of course, 3 wheels makes it a lot more stable. But when you're president or a CEO, then you want all the bells and whistles on your car.
In those days, were they air conditioned?
They did have a system of air conditioning, which I'll get to show you. The heating and the air conditioning was basically water running through the pipes.
Oh, okay.
And they even had a mattress underneath the master suite in the presidential car to heat or cool the mattress.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that one is all painted nice. This is the next one. This is our dining car, the Duncan Hines dining car. Now this dates back to around 1940s. This little door here, I call it the escape hatch. That leads directly to the hot kitchen. So they had the hot kitchen, cold kitchen, and seating for 48 guests, all on this car.
Wow.
Is this for easy loading?
Exactly. Or dropping off, because they had so much linen. They had tablecloths and napkins and everything. Yes. Now Duncan Hines was a real man. He was born here in Bowling Green, and he came back after he retired and came back to Bowling Green. But basically what he did, he would go around the United States and critique restaurants. And this is back in the day when you really didn't know what you were walking into as far as their, food service. They didn't have the inspections like they do these days. But he would critique the different places, even use some of their ideas for off the menus, and compiled cookbooks from that. Also for hotels, he let people know where it was a safe place, safe area for hotels and traveling.
So he did a guide for...
He did it himself. He wrote the books as
They were
like
books
a guide.
as guidebooks?
Yes.
And how come I associated him with cookies?
Well, because he did have his name on like the cake recipes.
Yes.
Because he was in the food service. Yeah.
And so one of the large companies bought his name brand? Is that what they did?
It was the Duncan Hines brand. As far as my knowledge goes, I don't think he ran the business.
Yeah, he just
used his
name.
They used his name.
His
So I
brand
guess
name.
answering your question, yes, they would have bought it.
And that brand's still around, isn't it?
Indeed. And they have a wonderful museum. Let's see, we're Sunday today. Unfortunately, the Kentucky Museum isn't open, but if you're here Monday or Tuesday, then the Kentucky Museum is free, and they have a Duncan. This is our EA8 engine. We will go inside these. Basically, I'm going to tell you little bits. We'll enter through the railway post office car cars, and then this was the throttle.
We're inside the locomotive, diesel locomotive. Pan American, Cincinnati, Louisville, Memphis, New Orleans. This is an excellent museum.
bag hanging right there, okay? And the crane is there. So the postal worker puts on his goggles. He looks outside to see which way the depot platform is on. Then he figures that out and then tosses the mail to drop off, okay? To pick up, this is where it's really cool. He takes this, goes like this, hoists this down, and there's a little little crook on the end there. But this is the most important part because that's called the soft spot, okay? The soft spot is what catches the bag, okay? Catches it, then he throws it down, ready to be processed. This is also used as a weapon because this, okay, yeah. This car was the one that was most apt to be robbed. So people could try to get on this way or derail the rail car, and then people would come and approach and try to rob things. Because, I mean, it had currency, stocks, bonds, bullion.
So they would try to come in the door here?
They could, yeah, they would try.
And he would knock them on the head and send them back home.
Right, exactly. Or at least in one spot, but not inside where they wanted it to be. Now, I mean, you might think this looks like a baseball bat, which it was. A lot of the railroad companies have their own baseball teams. So 600 letters per hour, and they would sort that in the letter boxes. They also were in command of a .38 caliber pistol for their safety because, like I said, the robbery was, you know, several robbery attempts did happen. And so that let them...
Did they transfer money?
They usually, we don't have a safe down here, but generally speaking, there'd be safes down at the bottom there, combination safes. So they would go ahead and process the mail. Each person was allocated a specific area. These were all according to geography, okay? So it wasn't in alphabetical order, it was in a certain area, okay? And now in case they were on a line or in case their designation wasn't one of these locations, these little things would flip around and have different counties and towns on it. So it was very versatile that way.
And they had to memorize all those towns and names.
Yeah, well, they did, a lot of times they did the very same, they had the same area.
Yes.
So that way, that was another thing, since they had processed so much mail, then being familiar, yes, with it. But at the same time, they were very close knit. If someone got behind, then the others, if they had caught up, they're more than willing to assist those that needed help.
And how many people worked in this car?
Anywhere 14 to 20.
Wow.
At one time, or less. It depended on where they were traveling, how many towns they were stopping at, because these could stop in passenger stops as well. So it wasn't just getting the mail from the crane on you know, the mail bag. Now the hardware starts here all the way down to the door. So if you can envision additional pouches and bags set up. So they just basically had this area right here to work.
Wow, that's close quarters.
It was. So basically, the only person that could sit, if you wanted to, was the person that did the registered or first class mail. But it was just like a little wooden stool with it moving back and forth. They generally just stood up and processed things on a table like this. So in our case, we have a .38 caliber pistol. There are goggles. Also, there are finger blades because they might have a pack of mail that is all strung up. And with the finger blades, it's just a quick whip and then it's undone.
Well, a finger what?
Finger blades. Right.
Oh.
And it's interesting because the man says, "Oh, we're from that town. They still make those." And what I really find interesting, on the far right-hand side, you'll see a stamp. That's a cancellation stamp because this was a working post office. So all of the correspondence needed to be, yes, exactly. So on the top, it would state the actual line that the rail car was attached to. And underneath, it said RPO for Railway Post Office.
Interesting.
And then also, I think you asked about these boxes, just in case there was like larger parcels, then they would be placed in here. There would be a bag hanging down. So once the bag got full, then they would undo the bag and then place it in this area.
Well, you remember how the post office used to, people would ship chicks?
They would, yes.
Did they do that here?
They would, because it was back in the day when they did. Yeah, they would have like live little chickens.
Huh?
That, yeah, they did that, but they don't do that anymore. That isn't allowed anymore. But. So, the railway workers ended up having a mascot. They called him Oni. He was from Albany, New York, and I think Oni just decided that he was born to work for the rail company. So I've got a little video here. I do need an assistant. Let's see. You will work. Would you push this button and that's going to start the video. Thank you.
You did it.
Back in the late 1800s, when mail was carried across this nation by trains and mail wagons, a small dog made postal history. His name was Oni, and this is his story. On a busy day at the Albany Post Office in 1888, a small homeless puppy crept in unnoticed, made himself right at home among the mail pouches, and soon was following the mail bags everywhere. Now one day a sack of mail fell off a mail wagon. The little dog jumped off the wagon and stood guard over it until the driver came back. Oni, as they called him, became the special mascot of the Albany Post Office. He traveled in mail trains which crossed the state and the country, often jumping from one train to the next. Now train wrecks were common at this time, but miraculously, the mail cars were always safe when Oni was on board. To let folks know that Oni was good luck, and to make sure he came back safe and sound, his friends at the Albany Post Office made him a special collar. Soon, people began attaching tags to it to show where Oni had been. Wherever he went, Oni made friends, and his tag collection grew. But Oni didn't just travel with the mails in this country. He journeyed by ship to Mexico, Alaska, and around the world. China, Singapore, and the Suez. Now, throughout his journeys, Oni made friends. One wrote this poem in his honor. Oni is a tramp, as you can plainly see. Only treat him kindly, and take him along with ye.
So when Oni passed away, the postmasters got together and hired a taxidermist. He is currently at the Smithsonian Institute. From what I've been told by several people is that they have given him an upgrade, so he looks better than he does in that picture. But yeah,
Well, that's
a drink. If you were in a dry county, you had to wait until you got to a wet county. So
you could take a sip, but you couldn't buy one.
Exactly. Yes, and you didn't have to chug-a-lug it down. No, you just to order another, you'd have to wait till you go into a wet county. But like I said, everyone was served off the same menu. Okay, now this is the area. This was the bar area. If you want to take a peek in there, that's the cold kitchen. Or you're welcome to come through here. So the cook could start as early as 4 a.m. in the morning. There were 6 waiters, 3 cooks, and 1 head chef, and then 1 porter. Now, they were very, very big as far as health and hygiene. So both areas, you have the hand wash area and the 3-compartment sink. And those units that have like the screen over them, those were heated units, okay? So you could put the the newly cleaned and sterilized plates up there. They stayed heated, and then once they were ready to prepare the meal, they'd place it on the heated plate, pass it over here. They should be. We're not historically correct, just like the microwave, okay? That's
What's
not
with
historically correct either.
what's with the sand here?
That's actually where they burned the wood or coals. In fact, that's where the sterno log comes from. So that's where they had the fire going on there. They did use gas as well. They had another like stove down here. And then also the recipe for Bisquick originated from the railroads. And they ended up buying the patent from the railways. And then they used the recipe. I think it was just basically lard and flour and water. And at night, the porter would come along and unlatch the top. That would release the top bunk and have all additional pillows and sheets needed for the bottom bunk. The bottom bunk you would just scoot together, okay? Now where you're sitting, you would pay a little bit more, but you would choose if you wanted the upper bunk or the bottom bunk.
Whoever's facing the front?
Exactly. That was their choice. So this was a first class section, and it was either for family or 2 individual suites. So you could pull this wall across, and then the wall would, or the bed would come from the top as well as the side. And then if it was 2 suites, each person still got their own bathroom. And these signs say, kindly flush toilet after each use except when in station. That's because with one pedal that would fill the toilet bowl and the basin up with water. When you were finished, then another would be released, and that would just release the water on the ground. So they wanted to make sure that the train was moving, especially if you had flushed the toilet. All right, so the first room you pass would pass the gallery.
What was this?
The gallery. That's where the chef could prepare meals. Sometimes there might be like a little stove on here. Then they have their bedroom. This could be an extra bedroom. And both of these beds are the ones that I was talking about that had pipes running underneath to run the hot or cold water. So that was the original heating and cooling system. So yes, air conditioning per se, it was like forced air.
Yes.
It had the best view, and oftentimes people that would own cars like this, they would call people from the passenger area if they got married or if they're all dressed up, and invite them to come for maybe like a little glass of champagne and stand outside and show off their outfits to the people at the platform. So, all right.
So this would be the end of the train then?
Yes, I love that question. You would never have a caboose behind, or you wouldn't have this and then a caboose. They wanted the presidential car to be the eye candy. They wanted it to, that was
For
the
show.
First
Yes.
show, exactly. The caboose also was more of like a workman's car because they had their beds on it. They had, you know, their bathroom and toilet on there. So it was for where they were working on the railroad, where they would drop off and then, or stop, work, and then be attached to another car later on once they completed their work.
So when they had presidential campaigns or celebrities, they would be in a car like this, and
Yes.
they would stand on this back
Yes.
porch there.
Yes, exactly. So during the presidential times, it was called the whistle stop campaign. And it was sort of psychological because they were up here. The crowd was looking up at them. So, you know, it sort of got to. And also they could stand out from the crowd and more people could see them and so forth.
Executive cars were always the last car on a train. They wouldn't have a caboose behind these because this is where celebrities, politicians, executives, etc. would address the public. This is a hospital unit car. They would transport the wounded to the nearest hospital. Can't go inside today, but they do have tours at certain times. And this was a Jim Crow car, they call it, because they could segregate the passengers.